we often get asked quite a bit, what is user experience? We call ourselves a user experience agency, and it's often used as this buzzword to talk about, anything that's well designed, or Web 2.0, or a great, game on a website. And it's actually a really hard problem. We struggle with that question often here. We often net out to, well, user experience is about software and utility, providing desirable, useful, and usable interfaces for people. In essence, caring about the end user, caring about the human being behind the glass of a piece of software. And so once you develop a little bit of a context around the fact that we're building software, how do you develop good user experience practices? From a professional within your organization, how do you evangelize and become a champion of user experience within that organization? We cover that in what we call the laws of user experience. And I'm going to talk to you about the first 3 laws of user experience. The first law is in essence, care about the human being, or focus on the end user. Oftentimes we get in conversations with our clients where we're talking about what they want their software to do, or what their business needs from it. And usually we can break ties within those conversations about what that software should do by bringing in the voice of the end user. And we do that with customer insight and customer research, and just simply going out and having conversations. Surveys work great, but those conversations, those one-on-one conversations in their environment, tend to understand what their business problems are, what their customers' pain points are when interacting with certain pieces of software, or when interacting with their business. That often lends to another problem, and that is people think the second law is your customers don't know how to build requirements. And what I mean by that is, sometimes we take that user research, and some interaction designers will take it literally, and somebody will say, well, I like the way Amazon works with the 7 tabs. And so they say, well, we need 7 tabs across the top of our website. The truth is that customers provide good feedback, but we need to interpret that feedback by an understanding of the business, and understanding of the technology landscape, and understanding what the core issues are behind that request. For example, when we were building and designing eBay Desktop, in the early stages of prototypes, we kept getting asked, where's the refresh button? Which makes a lot of sense if you're an eBay user accustomed to using eBay on eBay.com. Now when we're building a desktop application and the data is refreshed live real time, the refresh button doesn't make a lot of sense. So initially we actually did put a refresh button in there, and people would hit it even though it didn't do anything. And our chief interaction designer at the time said, wait a minute, the refresh button doesn't make sense. What's the core issue behind that refresh button request? And the core issue is they didn't trust the data. And when you don't trust the data, you want to hit that refresh button to make sure that the data is constantly refreshed. So so we took out the refresh button, and in essence put a real simple little feature in the app, and it's a countdown timer. It just shows you that the auction item is about to end in this amount of time. And that live feedback gave the end user the notion, and the truthful notion, that the data was live, and they stopped asking for the refresh button. And in fact, that request was such a popular feature that we added into the app that they bubbled that up to eBay.com. You can go to eBay.com now, you'll see that countdown timer happening, and eBay saw a dramatic drop in the refresh button hits on their website just based on that countdown timer. So it's really important to intuitively interpret user feedback, not just take it literally. The third thing that we see, the third most often mistake that we see is that you think you are your user. And this happens a lot with developers, it happens with stakeholders, it happens with most everybody when they're designing software without talking to their customers. You see things like, error messages that make absolutely no sense. Just recently, I have a Gmail account for a personal domain, and I saw a message pop up from Gmail that said, you're not allowed to send email from this domain yet. And that was the only message. Now, it made sense for the person designing that software, but it took me about 15-20 minutes to understand that I hadn't set that domain up appropriately to send email out yet. And that was intuitive for the person coding it, but not intuitive for the end user. So when you're designing software for people, you have to make sure that you don't put you have empathy for that person and not design it for yourself. Error message is a great example. Also, features that you think are important, that your end users don't think are important, are often found by taking those prototypes and getting those feedback loops. Well, those are the first three major problems that we come across when we're talking about the laws of user experience. We'll cover some more later.